into comics, cars, collectibles, or anything rare, you're in the right place. Tonight is not about showing off cool pieces. It's about why we collect, the stories behind the grills, the stories tied to them, and then also what's being built across the physical and digital collecting space right now. But I'm not alone. I do have a co-host today. You guys may know him as California Comics, so let me bring him in, and we're going to be going over the $15 million comic sale as well as some additional items as well. So, without further ado,
Hey man, how's it
hello there,
going?
brother. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. It's a nice winter's night in the UK, so I'm doing okay.
All right, fair enough, fair enough. Well, this is our first stream together. I'm super excited to, kind of jump into this, just have some chats, back and forth. And let me open up the public chat as well. Slider, my guy, appreciate you for being here. Look forward to seeing you on the stream. I do have a Slider scheduled for later next month to go on
Okay,
the
that's
stream.
superb.
So,
He's
so
as you
yes,
probably
yes.
know, a big palindrome collector, and I don't know if you see his post earlier as well. It was absolute gold. I don't know if you see that.
Oh, okay. No, no. You
Yeah,
know what? I need to check that out.
he did a
But
very very smart posted about just talking about NFTs in general and whatnot. But yeah, it's very good guy.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. All right, so I'm actually going to share. I know we're not going to talk about it right now because I want to talk about our collecting journeys, but I do kind of want to have our background up so we can make sure that we talk about this great company that you're a part of. So, but before we get started with that, let's just kind of jump into our collecting journeys, how we got where we are, kind of talk through. I know at some point we're going to talk through that record-breaking sale for that Superman action comic for 15 million, and
Yeah,
some mint hunting. I know that we're both big mint hunters, so
yeah.
with that being said, I'll tell you what, Callie, I'll give it to you to introduce yourself and your journey first.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. Well, first of all, it's just a pleasure being on your stream. First, I think I said to you before, what you did the other day when you went out on your own, I haven't got the cojones to do it. I just can't do it. So it's really great. So but yeah, I've been on Vivi now since late 21. I think it was like September time. um,
Uh,
and just sort of dip my toe in a little bit, try to understand a little bit about the technology and what NFTs really are and their use case. And yeah, just started. I was my brothers were the ones that got me into it, and I think predominantly the people that they were involved with were there more for the investment side. So um, I naturally was started looking at it from that perspective, but it literally took probably an hour for me to then start hoarding Marty's hoverboards, and the opposite of what they were telling me to invest in. I was just drawn to the things that I was nostalgic to me, and that I wanted to collect. Um, so I suppose the bug did start early on, and then yeah, I think it's actually 2 years now. I've sort of transitioned more into the special mint side, and I think some of the things we're going to talk about later about learning curves, mistakes, tricks of the trade, so to speak. It's definitely been there's been some harsh lessons, but there's been some good ones too. Um, but
excellent, excellent.
I think for the special mint side of it, for me, it definitely give me a resurgence. I probably had a period where I went a little bit quieter on the VV front, when the market started taking a bit of a downturn. But then when I come back and start finding that sort of nicheness as such, and that sort of sub community, it went from strength to strength.
Yeah, I can definitely relate. A lot of the VVOGs that started off, it was such an exciting journey in the beginning. You're coming in and buying stuff, and man, it's 100xing, and you see all this money. I remember, man, I bought an Iron Man for like $2,000 or $3,000.
Yeah,
And now to buy one, you get one for like $60.
yeah,
But it really is, and same with me. I mean, coming into this journey. So just share my journey with you. I myself, from a collecting standpoint, when I was younger, I collected like basketball, baseball cards, that type of deal. And I think that most people don't really realize is like all of us collect in some capacity or another, right?
Mhm.
And what really started to loop this into me and make things come a little bit more clear is, my dad was an antique collector, and he was
Okay.
almost just like us as far as like a graded slab, right? I remember going to the flea market, he'd pick up a piece of glass and he could run his fingers across it and tell me if it was pressed, cut, who made it, how much it's worth, and people couldn't, he would be able to do that. So it was, for me, getting those baseball cards, being able to find grails just like for a little bit of nothing, at these garage sales. And then as I got a little bit older, kind of got out of it, had kids, family, that type of stuff. And then I started collecting. I used to be a firearms instructor, fun
Oh
fact.
wow.
So did that. And so I collected quite a bit of firearms. And man, my wife met with my brother-in-law. We went to Ohio for my nephew's birthday. And we're sitting in the garage, and he's talking to her. He's talking about gems and Omi. And I'm
Mm.
like, I don't know nothing about this stuff. Like, my wife's talking. This was probably July. And I remember my wife came in. It was like probably like September. And she showed me her first collectible was the Captain America Uncommon, right?
Okay.
So once she showed me it in AR, I was sold. So I saw that. And of course, my first collectible, none other than a DeLorean. I mean, let's be
Yeah.
honest, right? Who's not buying a DeLorean? I'm an '80s baby, so put it into the house, and man, just the detail and being able to scale it up and look on the inside, and man, it was like for me that was that first part, and then unfortunately, in the beginning of the time where I jumped in was golden moments time,
Okay.
right? So it was one of those things that I jumped in. Look who we got here! Another guest.
Wow.
Good afternoon, everyone.
What's going on, Chris?
Good, guys. How are you?
Good, good. We're just talking about our collecting journeys and how we started off in Vivi and how I came in in 2021, later 2021, and man, the golden moments just were running rampant. I mean, I was not able to get anything on golden moment drop other than the lamp.
Oh,
But
I was lucky.
it was really fun.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
lucky. Oh, I
When
got
did
the C3PO. I didn't get the R2, and had to get them in the market. But yeah, Star Wars.
when did
So yeah,
when
there
did
was
they
no way it
drop? Was
wasn't
they
happening.
did they was that August 21 was it, or were they a bit earlier?
I was going back, but yeah, good to see you again, Daniel. How are you?
Yeah.
sorry, it's a little tardy, guys. I had to do some actual real life work stuff, but it's not all VV all day for me. So
Yeah.
I wish, but yeah.
Anytime we can get a bunch of collectors on and just have some casual conversations about what we love, right? You
Oh
can't
yeah,
beat it.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
so but
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, when I started, it was you were trying to get anything that you could, right? So,
Mhm.
I'm buying everything. Iron Man was probably my most expensive buy. I think I bought my first one at 6, and then I bought that one a little bit higher up because when
Yeah.
you're new to VV collecting, you're like, oh, it's always going to go up. It's never going to come down, right? Uh,
Nothing crashed.
one of my biggest mistakes. But
Yeah.
other than that, so I started to collect and really fell in love. By far, Golden Moments is my favorite set.
Yeah,
At that point, I really wasn't into comics like you guys are. So
Mhm.
I did the collectible piece, and then once the market took a downturn, then I had all of the stuff that I want. And it's like, what's the next logical step, right? It's mint honey.
yeah,
When you have everything that you need, it's like, okay, I need things that have a meaning to me or meaning to the collectible to build a set that tells a story, because that is why we collect, right? It's,
Yeah.
obviously there's a form of investment, but there's a story that you want told, a flex that you want, a persona that you want to display. So what
Yeah.
about you, Chris?
I'm the same. I got into the whole mint hunting thing relatively early. I did spend a lot of time sort of dollar cost averaging some some earlier buys, right? But yeah, I spent a few bucks. But yeah, that was the I always go back. I reference a friend of ours that at DGC, Denis Mazarel on X, if anyone follows him. And very, very early on, we figured out that we were both 20 minutes away from each other physically. We connected through my Collectibles, who was doing a live stream, Aaron, and we were just all commenting. And Aaron's like, "Oh yeah, we got to do a Vancouver thing," and then he's like, "Yeah, I'll be there," and I'm like, "I'll be there." And then next thing you know, we're DMing in the live stream, going, "Dude, where are you?" It's like, "Holy crap, let's go over for a beer." And so, and that was the first meeting I had with someone from VV that I didn't know. And we're now close friends. We talk all the time. We see each other all the time. And that was our first meeting over a couple of beers. Was like, okay, the herd is following this. How do we get away from the herd? Like, I don't want to jump off the cliff with everybody, type of thing. And that's where we started looking at the numbers. It's like, well, why are these numbers stamped on the front of these assets? That makes them unique in a way. And suddenly you could start putting the numbers together with meaning. And that was a big start for us very, very early on. And fortunately or unfortunately, the future will tell us, right? But we started going after sort of historical numbers. Like we're both Spider-Man fans, so we were anything to do with August 62, March 63, the start of the ASM #1 run, the series. So any Spider-Man asset that was connected to those dates. I know the 1963, the 1962, like the year numbers are incredibly popular, and there's good reason for that, right? It's easy. Anyone can see it. And then we went one step further and said, let's add in the month and the year and that type of stuff. And that was kind of where we started, and yeah, amassed a collection that was kind of quiet. Nobody was looking at it. So
yeah, I
So
remember.
speaking
Oh,
really
yeah.
quick, we got a special guest that just came in, Cali. So let's go ahead and let me get them to come in. But before they come in, let's go
It's
ahead
not
and
my
get this
wife, is it?
started.
As you announced it like someone. Yeah.
hey, I know that one.
Hello, Vincent. This is your intro. Did we lose him?
When you said we've got a special guest, at first I thought it was going to be Nicolas Cage coming on.
That's next.
Yeah. How you are, Vincent?
Hey, Vincent.
Welcome,
Hey, guys.
Vincent.
Hey, how's it going, fellas?
Yeah.
Good, all right.
Dr. Fidgetal said we got a special guest. At first, we thought it was Nicolas Cage. Unless he's with you
Hello?
right now.
Hi, this is Nick Cage. I used to collect comic books.
Pretty close.
How you guys doing?
Congratulations, sir. Congratulations.
It's cold here in New York City, man. It's cold.
Oh, I am sorry, my friend. Yeah, I know it's cold.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make some time for you guys. I appreciate you guys asking me to come on. And yes, we are extremely excited here at Metropolis Collectibles and Comic Connect. We just hit a blockbuster sale. Action Comics #1, CGC graded 9.0, the Nicolas Cage copy, the stolen Nicolas Cage copy. We brought it to market and sold it for what is now a groundbreaking, record-smashing $15 million. So excited about this.
That's unbelievable.
And it seemed to come out the blue so quick. I'm guessing there was significant planning. Like how early on did you know it was going to be a possibility of that happening? Was that like months in the making?
Everything is, I guess, decades in the making, but no. So we hoped after we sold it back in 2011 for $2.2 million that eventually we'd be able to sell it again for the owner. What happened was we had an interested party. We reached out to the owner of the book, and we were able to, after about a week and a half of negotiations, the price wasn't really the sticking point, so to speak. There was a validity to the value of the book, and basically, one of the points that needed to be addressed was we wanted to get the from the collection of Nicolas Cage on the label. So I had to fly down to CGC, and while I was down there getting the book reholdered, which is a little nerve wracking, but not too bad. When you've bought and sold as many 7-figure books as I have, these things are just par for the course. Now,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. It was really exciting and a little nerve wracking, but flying down there. And I got to spend a couple of days in the sun, which was really nice. And we shot a bunch of promotional videos with CGC, with Matt Nelson, who's the president of CGC, and it was really wonderful to see how they operate down there. We do a lot of our own social media here in New York. To see how somebody else does it is pretty cool. But we had a lot of fun, and then closed the deal. We brought the news to the public, our publicist, about a week later, and it was quite thrilling. The response was tremendous from all over the world. We had customers from all over the world contacting us, congratulating us, and hearing the types of positive reactions were really spectacular. One of the nicest things was hearing from friends and family, or people who don't even collect comic books, coming up to you going, "Hey, you're the comic guy. Did you sell that book for 15 minutes?" Yeah, that was us. And it's really nice to do that.
Yeah.
We did a bunch of different interviews, podcasts. Was an article in the New York Times. There was an article in People Magazine, and hundreds of other news programs, newspapers around the world again. And it's nice to be back in that leadership role of having the most expensive comic book go through our hands here at Metropolis and Comic Connect. We pride ourselves in, over the 40 years that I've been in business, my partner a bit more, bringing to market record-breaking sales. If it was, you have to remember, this comic book, my partner Stephen Fischler sold this action comic book to Nicolas Cage in 1996 for what was then a record $150,000. 4 years later, Nick was having a Christmas party at his home, and he had all the comic books in these beautiful shadow boxes. They were hung up on his wall, and he unlocked them to show his friends his collection. And I think somebody in the catering crew or a guest walked off with the Action #1 and several other copies of from his collection.
Wow.
We got a very hectic call the next day from Nick about the theft, and my partner Stephen flew out to California to help with the investigation. Stephen actually said to Nick at this point, said, "Your books were stolen. Sooner or later, somebody's going to try to sell them, and when they do, we're going to get them back for you." Fast forward to 11 years later, we're sitting in our office, and a guy calls up and says, "Hey, I have a client who just bought a storage unit here in Los Angeles, and he found an Action Comics #1 in it and would like to sell it. He wants $1 million. Could you send us a picture?" He's like, "Yeah, I'll call you guys back in a couple of hours." He wouldn't leave his number. He just said, "We'll call you back." And we're sitting there going, "Wait, no, no." And he hung up the phone, and we're sitting there on pins and needles waiting for him to call back. And sure enough, he does. And he emails us a picture of the book. And the second my partner, Steven, saw that picture, he knew it was the book. It has certain identifiable marks on it that it's only that copy has. It's like a fingerprint. Calls up Detective Horisic, who was on the case 11 years before, and calls up Nick and tells them that we've found the book. Flies out to LA the next day to do a buy with the seller. He and Detective Horisic meet at the police precinct, and the detective says to him, said, "Look, we're going to go. When you know it's the book, you just look over at me and say, 'Hey, this is a really nice book.' I'll then introduce myself as Detective Horisic and tell them what's going on. If anything goes wrong, if anybody pulls a gun, if anything goes crazy, don't be a hero," he says to him. "Don't be a hero. Hit the ground. I'll take care of it." To which my partner said, "No problem." So the next day comes, they go to this meet at this industrial park in Simi Valley in California, in Los Angeles, and they meet with a guy named Mark Bellella, who was on a show called Storage Wars at the time. And the guy who owns the book is standing behind him. They didn't even have it in a bag. It was just in like an office folder. And it's like the Holy Grail, you're opening up, and it's almost like something out of Pulp Fiction with the gold, So they look at it, and Steve, within a second of looking at it, realizes it's Nick's book and tells the detective, and the detective introduces himself. And this guy who was standing behind Mark Bellello, who owned the book, was so full of life and so excited he's going to get $1 million payday. And as soon as the detective gave him his business card, it was like all the color drained out of this guy's face. And it
Wow.
was just went from the best day of my life to the worst day of my life. And he stuck to his story that he bought it in a storage unit. Was that true? We don't know. I personally don't think so, but they couldn't shake him. And so what ended up happening from there is we recovered the book. Nick worked things out with the insurance company. We brought the book to auction within the year. And it ended up selling back then in 2011 for what was a record price of $2.2 million. And I remember this auction. It was really exciting. So it stayed in that collection, and now 2011 to 2026, and we then sold it for $15 million. It's not only the highest price ever sold for a comic book, it's actually the biggest profit ever made on a single comic book in the history of comic collecting.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
that's the story, guys.
What a
Well,
story.
that doesn't sound
Yeah.
like a story. That does sound like a movie.
Yes.
Nudge, nudge.
Mm.
That is that's
We've been
that is
told.
vital.
We've been told.
Have you been
Yes.
scripting this the whole
Yeah.
time? Right? Oh,
I've gotten my elevator pitched down pretty good. I hope you guys can tell. I've told this story once or twice before,
yeah.
but it really is a great story, and it's an exciting story. And we were so happy for Nick when we recovered it for him back then. It's heartbreaking when you have books stolen. I've had that happen. Almost every collector I know who has been around long enough has said something either go missing, a flood, something stolen. These things happen. Having said that, it was a relief to be able to find it and get it back for him. And then for our client who had the fortitude, I want to use the polite word, he had the balls actually to buy this book and hold on to it for as long as he did, and he deserves to make a huge profit on it, and that's great. And since this sale has happened, I've closed 2 more 7-figure deals, and we're working on collections and deals every day, whether it
Yeah.
be for comic books, original comic art, you name it. But we are making things happen, and it's really exciting.
That is very cool. Yeah.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Vincent, I have a question for you. Speaking of that, the debate of
Sure.
physical, digital, and hybrid. As a collector in both spaces, what are you seeing? Are you seeing more collectors doing both, some kind of dabbling in each? I mean, obviously physical is always going to be there. Digital just complements it. I mean, what are you seeing and what are your thoughts?
Well, I would say this from the standpoint of vintage comic books. I do believe the majority of those sales are going to be physical. However, I do love that VV was bringing out licensed through Marvel these Golden Age and Silver Age comic books. And I remember I was at VCon in Minneapolis, Gary V's convention, Gary Vaynerchuk, and we were set up. We were the comic book dealers for that convention. It was the entire Vikings stadium in Minneapolis, and we were there. And this guy came up to me and says, "Oh, I like your Daredevil. I had a 9.4 Daredevil #1." He's like, "I have one too." He pulls open his phone. I think he's going to show me a photo of his physical Daredevil #194. I was like, "Shoot, we got a guy here who's got." He showed me his VV copy of Daredevil 1, and I went, "Wow, that's a paradigm shift. That's really different." And I loved it. He was so passionate and so excited about that. So I think it's really wonderful that people can collect comic books in different ways. I listened to a really great interview about a year ago, and a guy made a point of some of the advantages for digital collectibles, digital comic books. One of them being you don't have to worry about shipping costs. So if you have to ship something, if you're in Japan ordering from the US, that's a lot of money. If you're living in a tight space, like if you're living in Tokyo or in New York City, have a lot of storage, having a big comic book collection is not easy, but having it on your phone or your computer, much easier. And the third thing was you don't have to worry about bug chew, mouse chew, mold. You don't have to worry about fires. You don't have to worry about water. You don't have to worry about any of those things because it's a digital format.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure one could argue you have to worry about somebody hacking your account or whatever, but I don't think that's really happening too much on VV. But suffice it to say, I do think there's a place for both of them. I certainly have grown very fond of digital comic books, not only in collecting them through Vivi, but also reading them digitally is sometimes really nice because you don't have to worry about. I'm reading a comic book and I'm about to fall asleep at night, and then you wake up and you've destroyed this comic book, whether it's new or not. You don't want to mess up your comic book, so it's nice you read it on your laptop or your computer, and that makes it a lot easier. So yeah, I do think there's a place for both, and I always, whenever I'm asked this question, I always quote the great Stan Lee. He said, "Comic books are like boobs. They're great to look at, but better to hold in your hands." And I go by that one. I like that saying. That was Stan Lee.
King of Cameo. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy on that note too, Vincent, because I just like 2 days ago, I just completed a transaction on Vivi with somebody that reached out to me, and I said, "Oh, I'll take care of this. I'll list this item for you right away." And he's like, "I'm actually going to bed." I'm like, "Oh, well, where are you?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm over in Poland," and it was blowing my mind because here I'm transacting with people around the world that might have not had access to these types of things in the past. That suddenly we've opened this up through this platform, and I thought, man, that is just it's cool because it was easy.
Yeah,
I've always said
yeah,
what brought me in was the easy button because I've got Aaron, if you're watching this, I know we met up at Golden Age Collectibles in Vancouver. It's like the big comic book store in Vancouver, and man, I've spent years of my life in there trolling through the box
nice,
and
nice.
finding the pieces. And I love that you said Daredevil because he's my favorite street level. So
That's
I love
great.
that
That's
stuff.
great. That's
But yeah,
great.
just but you had to go to a place or and then all of a sudden eBay showed up and whatnot, Facebook Marketplace. But there was always that question of what am I actually getting? Like I would be very secure purchasing an asset from a comic store, right?
Yeah,
From Metropolis, that type of thing. But there was always that hesitation when you're online, you're checking the person's, profile and background history and all
right.
that stuff. But that was the one thing with Vivi that I seem to like. It's like, well, Marvel licensed this, Lucasfilm licensed this. There must be
Yeah,
something that the brands and the IP saw value to
yeah,
say, like to your point earlier, let's open this up for a collecting audience that just might prefer digital for whatever
yeah,
reason, and they can't get access to the physical. And for me, that's always been the benefit. These two things complement each other. And if it's helping research the comic industry so that more people now understand the significance of that book you just sold, and that was a comic book. That wasn't a one of one piece of art or a statue. It was a comic book that
right,
committed that. And to me,
right.
that's people are all up in arms right now about store value and the price of gold and silver and Bitcoin and all these types of things. And here somebody made that type of investment in a comic. That to me is
Yeah.
that's just the stuff.
Yeah, and it's just created a whole new level for everybody in the collectibles world, comic books and other collectibles. And this is
Yeah,
one of the first times I can remember when a comic book was worth more than the most expensive baseball card.
right.
It's just pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's huge.
Um, and my partner made a really good, interesting distinction that comic books are one of the only true collectibles, and out of the true collectibles, um, it's the most valuable collectible. So here's his argument. If you're talking about comic books or baseball cards, those are true collectibles, and I'm sure there's other collectible categories. But coins were made to be used as currency.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Movie props were made as costumes for movies. And I'm sure we could stamps, same thing, used for letters. Comic books were meant to be collected. They were meant to be read and collected as a series. So it's interesting. I think it's could be argued very well that this is the most valuable true collectible in the world.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
wouldn't.
Yeah.
again, it's great what you've probably seen what Vivi are doing. You've already got your comics, your collectibles and statues,
Mm.
got LPs on there now, stamps. So again, it does like you said, Dr. Fidgel, it gives that nice complement to the physical world if someone wants that,
Yeah.
or if someone's like me who's got 3 young daughters and the thought of having physical collections at home just gets destroyed. I can just dine out on a larger digital side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on that note,
Yeah.
I think I don't know this officially, but I think I do hold the highest sale for an addiction comic. I'm pretty sure I must hold that record.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
How much did you sell it for?
Well, no, I actually own it. So I got the Addiction 1 2023 mint, which is obviously, as you know,
Wow.
publication year. So yeah, it's on the rare cover.
Wow.
Yeah, I paid a king's ransom, and it's in my never sell.
Can we know what you paid for it or no?
I'll
Or you can tell
send
me
you a
offline if
message.
you don't want to say
Yeah.
it public. I'd love to know. It's
I'll
exciting.
send-
It's exciting.
Oh, but
Yeah.
again,
So
yeah.
yeah. So we've got a lot of exciting things ready for our addiction fans this year. We're working on a few different promotional products and collectibles. So as soon as we have something to announce, we're going to let everybody know, and we'd love to come back on and talk a little bit more about it. But the second series is really exciting. Our new villain, the Fever, who can make you dance till you drop dead. He's really cool. I'm digging this character, and the further romances of Nikki and Enzo continue, and we have a whole new cast of supporting characters. Are they friends? Are they foes? That kind of Marvel feeling from the 60s, And so it's been really exciting to continue working on it. It's a true labor of love. And we have also an interesting promotional concept. The first miniseries we tied in with food companies. This series is going to be a little different. So yeah, we have got a lot in store for everybody out there. And what we want to see is we want to see the VV community grow, because we think it's such a wonderful community to be a part of. It's a really interesting way to collect, and I think you have a lot of fun with this. So that's what we want to see.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Shout out
right
to
on.
Kritza as well. She does some amazing Nikki cosplay. Some of the
Clerks
things she's done,
she's incredible.
she's
So
incredible.
sweet, such a beautiful woman, but so sweet and so creative. I don't even know how she does half the stuff she does, but even the other day she did one, and I'm like an addiction one. I was like, this is so cool. She's awesome. She
Yeah,
really is.
yeah.
Yeah. Very, very, very nice person. Yeah, guys, I don't mean to be rude, but I have got to jet out of here. I've got to meet with a client in a little bit. I had such a good time being on the show. I hope I gave you guys some of the information you wanted about this Action One sale. And again, guys, please keep the addiction live in your hearts and your minds. We're going to be launching the second series soon, and it's going to be really exciting.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
All right,
We look
guys.
forward to having you again.
Peace out, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay.
See you, Vincent.
Take it easy, guys. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Until next time.
Very cool. Sharing some history.
Man.
Sharing some history.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
yes.
Chris, Dr. Fidget said to me, "Oh, we should talk about the comic sale." And well, I was like, "I'll be fraudulent talking about it. Like, let's try and get Vincent on." And oh yeah, fortunately, Vincent, who's such an
He showed
unbelievable
up.
guy, yeah, it was like, yeah, of course I'll come
Well-
on. It's like, oh, that's that then.
Yeah, well done. Yeah, it's all downhill from here. No. But yeah, that's such a big moment in time, right? To see something like that, and like you said, to outsell ball cards and everything else, like the options that someone with that means had, you could really have bought anything, and they chose that. My only qualm right now is it's not on Candy DC. We'll see how that goes, right? But that's the one that was missing, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Again,
I don't know. I'm also on the VV side. Like I'm a big holdout. I'm waiting for that Captain America #1. I think that's going to be right up there with some of the the AF-15 and whatnot. The MC-1. Like that'll be a moment in VV's time. I'm saying it's coming. I'm speculation nation right here.
Speculation Nation. Shout out to old Millie.
I can't see how that book's not coming at some point, but yeah, cover be damned. I don't know. I think that'll be a big milestone moment. But to me, this is all. It's the comic industry. It's just it's been around since the 1930s, really, and it's mainstream format. We're still enjoying it today. It's just evolved in its distribution format. Like really, we all used to read books, and I used to have the Encyclopedia Britannica set, for those of you old enough to follow me in my age group. But, that's where you got your info, right?
Yeah.
There was no chat GPT, there was no internet, right? I was here before the internet and I'm still here enjoying it. I've seen both sides of the fence, and I get why the nostalgia side. Vincent made a really good point, right? You're always going to have your physicals because they were made in the past, and they're
Mhm.
becoming more scarce. It's just they get destroyed, lost, burnt, damaged. That's just the natural evolution of a collectible space. And all of a sudden, we've got something that anyone in a developed country is on the internet. Um,
Yeah.
in some cases, I think even here in North America, we're behind in adoption of mobile tech and the things that are going on in the rest of the world. And we sometimes forget we're not necessarily the dominant leader in the space, but we are where a lot of these things take shape and take hold in the market. And boy, man, I just think when this decides to become mainstream, people aren't going to think of them as NFTs or digital assets. It's just going to be you've got the physical comic, and now you compare it with the digital, and they're a set, right? They belong together, and that to me is why this intersection of where we are collecting today is so cool. Uh, I mean, I write for Go Collect, right? I don't know you guys know this. Every article I write, I get somebody saying, "Oh, this NFT thing's still going." It's like it's not a question of not whether it's still going. It's the underlying architecture of distribution of information that's changing. It's just becoming a better internet, right? Well, are you on top of that, or do you not use the internet? I kind of get those things like you made the comment on my blog, which is an internet blog on an internet site, and you went on your internet to make that comment where you're saying this digital stuff doesn't make any sense. It's like, okay, it's hard sometimes. You bite your tongue, right? It's just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
so.
You know what it 100% is, and you know what, you touched on an important fact that you want, like, I have the digital, I started but I want the physical now.
Yeah,
So Cali Comics sold me one of my Avengers #1s. Now here I am, I'm on eBay trying to find the physical because it's like I have to have it, right? And so and mints matter, as you talked about those specific FA years and birth years, and Callie, I know that we're gonna, I got it pulled up. So I got Go Collect pulled up, Chris, because Callie did buy this, and I'll let him talk on those the FA
hey
or
Bishop.
special mint that he paid.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I think, and if it there's a question. I think it surfaces occasionally, and it's about like, would the cost of digital ever get close to, or not necessarily exceed, but pretty much start comparing with what some of the prices are in the physical land. And I think anyone who would say that could be the case now would probably be largely kidding themselves. But what that will be in the future. But I think there's some, like, I use Go Collect, or like any comic book transaction I make, especially a special mint, I'm always referring back to Go Collect to get a bit of a feel for it. And I think Chris, I'm right in saying you've got a affiliate code for Go Collect,
yeah.
haven't you?
If anybody
Nice plug.
wants the professional access, let me know, because a lot of times you can go to Go Collect and it'll track up to say a 9.2 or a 9.4, but it won't get you all the the deep data on the highest grades and that type of thing.
Yeah.
And they're not expensive to have these accounts either. It's not like it's
Well,
thousands.
as I know, I think one of the topics we was going to speak about is some of like tips of the trade for special mint collecting. But like for me, having data like this is incredibly useful. So I've got the premium account too. But I think there'll be naturally some comic books, some of the the older ones from the the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, where you take Fantastic Four 2. It's going to have a much higher value on those higher grades, just because there is only going to be a handful of them in existence, maybe only one at the highest grade.
Yeah.
So, seeing what the digital equivalent could be, Fantastic Four 2 again, you've got the 1962 mint. That is technically the publication year 1 of 1. Will that stretch? Is hard, but something like this where Uncanny X-Men 282, and it's more of a recent book. I think this is 1991, where you've got, what's the census there? Just over 2,000 census at the highest grade. Well, in this case, and I don't mind sharing this value, I paid $500 for the 1991. I'm a massive fan of Bishop. So quite an expense, 5x, almost 500x floor, it probably is, no doubt. But you know, in that scenario, that's actually outstripped the physical record.
Mhm.
So
Well,
you
it's
probably
very
will.
similar on because I get asked this a lot of times, like, well, you can't use Go Collect to compare to digital assets. These are two different things, and I struggle with that because your point is very solid. There's 2,000 census grades on a 9.8. So only 2,000 people own one of those physical books that is so pristine that a third party grading company said, yes, this values it at a 9.8. Now you're down to a small proportion. There's a million of those copies were made, and they can keep making them if they so decided. Reprints, fax copies, and all that kind of stuff. So when you whittle that down to a handful of collectors that own something that valuable, and all of a sudden, you know, they want to pair it with its digital counterpart, cousin, whatever you want to call it, which one are they going to go to? You know, they're willing to spend above the floor, above the, you know, go into a long box at a comic book store and pick a couple of these up for $2. This is selling, I can't see what it is here, but you know, it's selling for hundreds, 10x the floor, whatever that might be. Sure, you're gonna want its pairing with a key mint number. And that becomes there might have been 30,000 minted on Vivi, but from that 30,000, start pulling out the numbers of most significance. And you're probably down to a level of maybe 1,500, 2,000 mints that have significant meaning. And suddenly there's scarcity built into that. Like early on, I collected palindromes and binaries and you know, ones and zeros and that type of thing, because again, when you do the math on them, they are very scarce numerically against the total printing or the minting of them, right? So that methodology is why I use Go Collect. I'm trying to figure out how many of them are actually graded in existence. What are the levels of the grade? When was the last purchase? There's some books that people have spent enormous amounts purchasing a physical copy and probably haven't really thought about a digital asset yet or what that means. Because a lot of people are like, hey, I got Marvel Unlimited. I can read these things all day long, right? But you're renting Marvel Unlimited. You're not owning the asset. And that's a key difference. And I know we have chats too, things like the Neon Ichiban and all that. And they're kind of going the Marvel Unlimited route. They're letting you buy the asset, but you don't actually own it. You can't download. If you download it, you forfeit your right to resell it, which is, I find that a bit of an Achilles heel. Like, why wouldn't I want to download it? Then I can own it, read it, take it with me. But it's a flipping marketplace, which is great. I mean, again, it's another entity that's digital that's helping promote the reading of digital assets and digital comics. And then if you want to go to the actual full ownership, you've got the Vivi platform. So it's expanding the narrative, but it goes right back to the root. You know, Go Collect has been great in tracking sales through auction houses and eBay and all the places where high value assets are going. And suddenly you have someone like Daniel that made an expensive decision to purchase an asset in digital form. Well, that's significant because that means imagine there's 100 or 1,000 decisions like that happening. Those dollars didn't go into a physical asset, they came into a digital. And then you might want to go pair it with the physical or vice versa. Those physical owners that suddenly realize what's happening and, oh, I maybe I missed out. Did I miss out? No, you could still come in. The marketplace is full of opportunity, right? And so I just see that intersection as being really, really key. And yeah, not everybody is going to know the significance of a specific mint number, or they're not going to know what a palindrome is. Why would you know that unless you had known what a palindrome is, right? And so, but there's an education that's coming out as we continue to talk about this and people learn about significance. And I know when we talk about DGC and whatnot, when we were first starting the business, like one of the core passions was that what if we can help people just understand before they list something that they might be holding on to something that they probably shouldn't have listed at floor? Um, you know, if there's an education aspect that we can help with the marketplace, I think that's good for everybody too. Because you don't want to see somebody all of a sudden realize I had no idea what that meant, and now it's gone, and I feel bad about selling it. Right? I just to me, that's part of this whole thing, is helping understand those connections, right? So
And I think that when technology catches up, when you're able to display your collectibles, whether it be in your office, in your home, that's going to be a game changer,
oh
right?
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, I'm a huge Elmon X fan, I can't wait to show my Starry Night, for me, right? When we're talking about mints and then also just scarcity, right? The AF-15 secret rare, man, I bought that thing. It's not going anywhere. I don't
no,
care. I wouldn't have cared what mint I got. I mean, I was fortunate to get a good mint, right?
right.
But when you see it, you know that it's valuable,
Oh
and
yeah.
I want to be able to display it, and the blockchain shows that we own it. So I do have another question for you guys, just obviously sticking with technology. How do you feel about fractional ownership, when we're talking about these big grails and these comics and special mints that, let's be honest, mint hunters like us, when we grab these mints, they're not going back on the market.
Yeah.
And typically when we're selling them to other collectors like ourselves that don't plan on selling them. So there's a lot of Grail mints that will never hit the market again. So what are your thoughts?
We've probably got the perfect example. So Chris, I, Scotchy, and Denny, we all went in and purchased the AF-15 Mint 862, which is August 62 of the publication year. So it's the only thing out of all the collection, everything I own, that I did that fractional ownership on, and it's strange. It feels, even though I own 25% of it, it still feels like still got the same passion. Like, it doesn't detract from that for some odd reason. Like, we know we've got a contract. We're not selling until that baby goes up for a lot of money, And I think Denny, I don't think we could probably persuade Denny to sell ever anyway. So it's a forever one.
Yeah.
But I think there's, again, if, and I know if's a big word, we do get the masses arrive at some point, even a large edition like MC1, there's still only going to be a certain amount of those to go around.
Mhm.
And then when you look at the special mints, the 1939 that Bobby Sands owns, that might be quite pricey for one individual to own. That could be multiple. That
Yeah.
could become a bit of a consortium.
Yeah, I see group purchasing. You could get into the hedge funds and the investment companies that start doing this, and then they're reselling fractional ownership to their customers. You're seeing it in real world assets. Andre Geek, how do I say that? Jick.
Yeah.
Apologize if I'm massacring that, but right, he's promoted that fractional art company. Where you can own basically portions of very famous world art. Our point with owning the 862 AF-15, I look at it like, I always get asked, because I'm into Bitcoin and all that kind of stuff, and I'm always asked, like, well, how are you coming up with the money to buy a Bitcoin? And it's like, we don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. You buy $1 of it, you buy $1,000 of it. It's, what are you comfortable with? It's fractional ownership of a scarce asset. Well, MC1, yeah, it's 60,000 editions minted. Doesn't seem as scarce against maybe some of the ones that are 1,000, but I always say, if you're a Marvel fan and you find out that you could own a copy of MC1 and it just happens to be in digital format and you can buy it right now for 25 bucks, you don't think that's a deal? That's a steal on that, right? So I mean,
Absolutely.
I keep dollar costing into them because I just, and good. Shout out to Sanjay. I know he bought a lot of them in the early days, right? But that's how I see it. There's more than 60,000 Marvel fans in the world. There always will be, because Marvel's going to keep putting out content, movies, and they saw this somehow as unique. And whether it was an experiment or a trial, the reality is we're in year 5 of this, and they're still selling on the marketplace, and they get recurring revenue from that. It's a perpetual monetary system from selling. You could call it almost fractional ownership of MC1, right? It's not like there's one book available. Vivi has 60,000 and you're buying a small portion of the overall IP. But I mean, owning that asset, owning Fantastic Four #1, Amazing Spider-Man 1, Amazing Fantasy 15. These are titles that most people in the world would never be able to purchase. Like, even what's a .5 grade on Marvel Comics #1 would sell for 20 something thousand. Like, it's not easy for a lot of people to go out and access these things, and suddenly now you can. And I think that's the pivotal point, when the aha moment hits, where it's like, oh, I can actually own this. I think that's just, people don't really put the pieces together between physical ownership. You know, I pick something up, it's in my hand, yes, I own it, or something that's in my phone. But I mean, I own the contract on my phone. I own the assets that are within that phone on this platform. I can sell it if I want. And that was always my litmus test. If I don't want it anymore, I can offload it and recoup some of the revenue that I put into it, or maybe make a profit, or maybe right now make a loss, right? It just depends on
Fair.
But you reference a good point there as well about, you know, even like corporations and businesses. You know, I always think back to the 1977 Luke lightsaber that Comics and Crypto own. You know, Luke, granted, I'm assuming Lucasfilm or whoever, you know, Star Wars have got probably quite a nice low edition. They might even own edition 1 on that.
Yeah.
But that 1977 is, you could probably undoubtedly, the museum piece, you know. So,
Yeah.
you know, do they come calling at some point? And this could even lead into, it's always a bit of a mock subject about like the renting side of things. You know, there could be unique use cases where renting is a thing, and it might be something like that.
Yeah.
So
Hey, you
yeah.
want to party? You want to show off? Maybe you've got a VVverse event happening. Maybe you need that. Vincent made a really good point, right? Movie props are made as assets for the film. Well, so is the lightsaber for Star Wars, right? The IP
Yeah.
is the 1976 novel that came out. Then the movie comes out in 77. You had to create all these props, and those were physical props because they had to be in the hand of the actor. And where are we moving in the world of AI and augmented reality, where the props are going to be digital assets? Those props are going to be put in an actor's hand, who is an AI representation of the actor. So what if they have to get those props from somewhere digitally?
Yeah.
Maybe there's a reason Lucasfilm is licensing these things. They probably own some of their own, like you said, right? The low mints and whatnot. But boy, I don't know, George, if you're going to watch this and, you know, Mr. Lucas suddenly realizes the 1977 Luke lightsaber is in existence, right? That's somebody that might want that, right? So,
Yeah.
You touched on like a major point. I mean, once again, speculation nation, right? What if, at some point these things become usable in other areas, and the metadata tells us that, I'm walking around in Fortnite and I own the 1963 Iron Man. And there's only one of those, right?
Yeah.
So, being able to connect that digital with gaming as well is such a huge avenue that I know Vivi is trying to go down.
Yeah.
But it's just going to really open the door, because the new age collectors are collecting skins, which in reality is nothing but collectibles that they really don't own, right? So if you're able to own something and have that metadata show, what that specific, mint or that year or that first one, that's just a huge flex. It's no different than anything else of buying a Lamborghini and driving it around, because it's not reasonable, right? It's not a comfortable car, from what I understand. Sorry, I haven't driven a Lamborghini outside of my VV1, but it's the reality, right? It's the flex. So,
But
but
we could be talking 5, 10 plus years in the future. I've, like you said, it's speculation nation. I don't think there's any harm with that. But it'd be interesting. You take that comic book sale Vincent's just done. I'm sure there would be people in real life, if they knew they could hire that for a party and just have it on the mantelpiece or something. There would be people out there that would do that and probably pay a king's ransom for that. Digital, like I said, it's a whole lot easier if the tech's there and you've got the ability to do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
now, you might not want to put that out in a party and have it lifted again.
yeah.
That's why I see something like a Fanable makes perfect sense, where you could, here's the NFT that I own of the physical asset. I've printed that out and I've put it on the shelf in a little case where I can show that off. But the physical is in a Brinks vault, covered by insurance, and it can't flood, fire, theft. I see that again, right? There's the phygital integrations between where tech is allowing these types of things to flourish and get more eyeballs on it, right? So
Yeah, and then Slider made a comment a short while ago about, you know, once AR glasses really get perfected, that could be a game changer as well. Like I bought the Meta Quest 3 over Christmas, and I'd never used VR before, always intrigued me. But just getting a glimpse of that, it is a big eye opener. Especially when you do the mixed reality, and I've not been able to use the Viviverse on it. There might be a way to do that, but this you can sort of picture and see how that could really be something in the future. I think the potential is just off the charts, and I've always sort of said internally that for me the main thing is Vivi survive, and I think that's why I'm really glad Dan and David are spearheading that ship, because I think they are probably quite conservative when it comes to, you know, bet the ranch and really go heavy in the market. And I'd rather, I won't say slow and steady, but I'd rather safety. Because when you knit in the thing like you said, Chris, that Disney, Star Wars, all of these IPs, even some of the smaller ones, they've got perpetual royalties hitting their bank account every single day in theory, and that is a big deal for them. So, you know, I think, you know, like I said, we could be many years off, but I just can't see a future where this can't be a thing.
Yeah, that's such an advantage, because if you're the brand, you publish or you print the comic book, the printer gets paid, and then you distribute to the comic book shop, and there's a payment, and then the comic book shop sells to you. There's a payment. There's like 3 or 4 payments that happen, and then they're finite. So if I own a comic and I sell it on eBay or Facebook, and that person goes and sells it 100 more times, there's transaction between all those buyers and sellers, but the IP and the original comic book shop that sold it, they're out of the loop. Well, Vivi's the original comic book shop for all their assets. The artist can be recovering revenues. The IP is consistently, every time a sale happens, there's that little 6% or whatever is going on in there. It seems small, you know, a comic book in Vivi that sells for $1 and there's a 6% fee on it. It seems nothing, but you know, if you got hundreds selling a day, and eventually,
and especially, you know, I know obviously Disney's revenues would be so significant from all their in real life stuff, but back in 2021 and the golden moments, that they would have stood up and took, someone would have been taking notice there for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, they had to track, right? How many did we put out? What did they sell? Suddenly you got, what were Walt's selling for? Over 150,000 US.
Dude.
People were buying them. They were flipping them, right? And now you can get them for 1,500. And if I had 1,500 laying around, I'd probably want to be stacking. But that's just it's such a meaningful IP. This is the one thing that brought me into Vivi. It wasn't, and I get things like Bored Apes and all that stuff, you know, these 2D NFTs, because it was new. It was a brand new space for art collectors and technology enthusiasts. Great for everybody. I'd never heard of it before. And so when you have something like Pudgy Penguins, where people have purchased the physical item, when you have something like Marvel, and like, what was that? The book we put, the magazine, I think it was Time or somebody wrote a couple of years back. Disney parks and you know, Disney Lucasfilm sell 10 million lightsabers a year. Right, the physical ones you can light up and play around with. 10 million, right? What if 1% of that just decided to come and have the digital asset that they? When I turn that on my phone and I show my buddies, right? I'm in my 50s, right? And they're like, what how is that? What is that? That is so cool. How'd you make that? I'm like, I didn't make it, right? That's what I got it for. And they instantly see how cool that is. There's a chance. And I always say, like, some of the biggest companies that we know today didn't start off saying we're going to replace an industry or a market. They said we're going to disrupt it a little. And if Uber can take 5% of the taxi industry, that was their goal, just 5%, right? It wasn't to kill taxis. Taxis don't have purpose or meaning. It's like, hey, some people don't want to use a cab. They want to track, and they want to know who the driver is, and all this kind of stuff that I can't do in that format, I can do here. And that's where you just see some of that, just small little levels of disruption, and that's kind of where I'm seeing it.
And here's the kicker, and it does sound like I'm romanticizing, but it's great to speculate, and it'd be great if all newbies come in, and the market's thriving, it has all that fun dynamic. But if that don't happen, and I can just build a collection and admire it for the next 30, 40 years, then I'm actually okay with that.
Yeah.
Like, 'cause I'm having a lot of fun doing this. It's so I know, and I appreciate there'll be people here that will be strictly for investment, and that's fine. But I think if you're here as a collector, like I said, it's a revelation.
Well, it's certainly changed
One thing,
in this
yeah,
grand early on, buying up everything because there wasn't a lot in the store, right? And
yeah.
I always say, right, Um, but then today I find myself selling off, and not that I ever thought that I would be selling anything in Vivi, but I'm selling things that I maybe bought because of the investment side. I was a little, speculative. I was a little excited. I thought, oh yeah, everybody will want this. But now there's certain things that I want in my collection so that I can look at them and enjoy them for years to come. And that's where I'm pivoting. I'm selling a few things to find some gems, and then I can, go after these. And a lot of it's just I'm missing a secret rare on a set where I would have all three sets, all three variant guys, stuff like that. So the game keeps evolving, but that's to me, that's the utility. I'm still enjoying it. I'm still having fun. I'm still searching for certain things. I'm pairing mints. I'm pairing collections. I'm completing sets. These are what collectors do. You
Yeah.
complete sets, right? So
Yeah.
smart.
Yeah, for me, you touched on a valuable point, like, California Comics, like I purchased that 1971 Walt, right? Now I could have bought 10 plus Walts with what I paid for that, right? But there's something about when I'm able to go to Disney World and put that specific Walt, that 1971 opening year Walt in there, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
So like you said, if nothing ever happens, that's a piece that will always stay with me that I'm super excited to have, right?
Yeah. I think
So
I think I have the 1971 lamp. I'd have to double.
yes,
I think that's
yeah,
I've got a golden moment with the date. So I think it's
and again, there's some pieces. I've got the DeLoreans. I know you mentioned them earlier, Doctor
Yeah.
Visual. I've got all three DeLoreans, and I managed to get 1989 on all of them. Back to the Future 2 is my favorite out of the three movies. Like, I don't think of course, there's silly money, of course, like life-changing money, which is not going to happen. But I'd be very depressed if I ever let go of them. And I've got a lot of things in my collection like that. I've got the Rambo 3 88 mint. I love Rambo 3. I'm not going to let that go.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know. I've got the Darth Vader 5775, right? So May 77th, and I got it as a palindrome. And this is back in the day when people didn't know the dates. They didn't know what palindromes were, right? That was just sitting on the market. I wasn't lucky enough to get that in the store, but I'm a massive Star Wars fan. Vader is one of my favorite characters of all time. So to have that in the collection, like you'd have to pry that out of my, like, the thought of letting it go it's depressing. Like, why? How bad would I have to be off to sell that? And it was kind of like the all or nothing mentality. I have it, I'm gonna love it forever. And if this thing didn't work out, I had the memory of having it and loving it for a short time, right? But I don't see that. I wouldn't think that we're still getting new IPs, new brands coming into the ecosystem, and the ones that we have, like, let's not forget, like, I just use Lucasfilm because it's easy to talk about, right? Yeah, they're putting out another Stormtrooper pairing, right? They're not the FAs. They're more animated looking now coming up. But that's the brand saying, yeah, let's throw these out on Vivi. It's kind of like when they made the physical toy and they put it in a package. There was the first Stormtroopers from Hasbro that came out in 77 or 76, I think, but 78. But there's been lots of variants released since, and hundreds of them. And guess what? People still go to Toys R Us and buy them because they like the IP. They're fans of the brand. And that's what keeps you growing collections and assets. And I see the same thing here. And it's great that they're not coming out expensive, right? The new Boba Fett. I mean, I've been really looking at this because I loved the show. Many people didn't, but I really liked Book of Boba Fett. I thought it was cool. That's a great, great NFT that's been created for this. Now I have a lot of the FA, and I know, Daniel, we've had this chat too. It's like, well, there's always going to be just one first appearance, and then there'll be lots of variants that come out. And as we've seen in the past 5 years, the first Iron Man digital collectible is a golden moment. And I paid quite a bit to get some of those, right? Now it's a little bit less than what I paid, but that's the FA. But when you compare it against that animated Iron Man that takes off and he's got the blasters coming out, like, that's just a great piece. And you want to own it because it's a great piece. But there'll always be the debate between that funness, that greatness versus the FA. And I don't know. I still like the FAs. I haven't sold any of those ones yet because I think down the road too, Daniel, like, don't follow me. I'm lost too when it comes to financial advice. But those first
Don't follow any of us.
Yeah.
Not financial advice.
Not financial advice. Anything. But boy, oh boy, just the feeling. It's a bit of like pride to be like, look, I took this risk. I didn't know what the hell NFTs were 5-6 years ago. Most people still don't today, right? But for those of us that jumped in early, that's you look at the old-fashioned adoption curve, right? And there was a time I could have had Amazon shares for $1 each. I did. I had a bet with a buddy. I bought a bunch of them and I sold them when they 10x as I won the bet, right? He didn't think no one's going to buy books on this internet thing, right? I said, really? I'm gonna bet you on that. Of course, and all of a sudden it's like 10,000x from what I was buying.
Speaking of buying digital comics, I want to show the video of California Comics, California Comics store in the Viviverse. But before we do that, Daniel, can you kind of share with us, like, what was your thought behind having it built? How is it going? I know that, from what I understand, like when you sell out of your collection, that actually sells out of the actual store itself.
Yeah, it was. So I did the rebrand. So I previously was Viva La Vivi, which was just an off-the-cuff quick name that I set up, and then we're talking not last summer, the summer before. I thought I'd do a bit of a rebrand, the slipping things up, and California Comics was spawned. But up until the Viviverse was launched, I didn't really have any definitive plans exactly what to do. I just thought I would do some showcasing, add some sort of visuals in my mind. And then the moment we got access to their default pad, I started finding myself just putting up some shelving, putting books on it. And all of a sudden, it was just expanding. It's like, hang on, this looks like a store. And then, it comes together quite quick. And Chris and I were in our DMs constantly. I'm sending him photos of what I'm doing in the Viviverse. And then it just clicked. And I was like, actually, Chris, what if you come in and buy the Daredevil comic from me, which I think we did for 1 gen. Like, we'll admit that. I think it was like a bit of a gift, but come and be the first ever customer. And then maybe I just put a post out, and we did that, and it just blew up, which was incredible. And I think it's been like I could spend a lot of time in the Viviverse setting it up as a full-blown store. Like this visual here is geared up for that. The reality is, one, we've not got metadata in now. There's no real ability to go in there and actually buy. You can do it manually, but it's just more to go and peruse. But I think what I want to do is get out early, put the building blocks in place, knowing that I can now Chris and people involved can just sort of plan for what the future will be. We've sort of made, I'm tried to be quite, I don't want to sound arrogant saying this, but I think the status of having the first ever metaversal comic book store, which Vivi themselves on many occasions put it on the record we've done, is just great. But now we've got the opportunity to be able to do some real powerful things with this going forward, and we've got some real big plans.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. So I'm going to play this video just so they can kind of get a walkthrough of your metaverse space. And then I would like to wrap up talking about DGC and what you guys are doing there and for the collecting space. So let's start this video.
And something else that was quite cool about this is on the middle floor, what we was doing, that's all Mark Brooks the artist, that's all his covers.
God, it's just
Man,
nice
that
looking
was a
at those
phenomenal
covers.
space that you built there, brother.
Yeah, look,
I know that was a labor of love and a lot of work.
yeah, and look, there's many more skilled builders out there than me. I wouldn't even qualify myself as a builder as such. But you know, I think again, and I've given flowers for it before, but you know, they take a lot of heat with the Viviverse, but that is a big innovation. The platform to be able to go and build something like that. I know it's cavernous, and a lot of the kit's already there. But if that's version 1.0, you know,
Yeah.
it just is exciting what we could do with it in the future.
Mhm.
Um,
Excellent, excellent. And just by the way, everyone, you know, I can't keep going without saying make sure that you stop by everyone's pages, you know, hit the like button, subscribe, because we'll be doing more editions. And, you know, we're going to try to do this on a weekly basis and chat with some different collectors and go over some different things. I mean, I do have a space on Sunday with Master Roney to go over Iron Man Mansion. Daniel and I have an interview with Charlie NFT, the big whale collector, Grail collector on VV that we'll have next week. So tune in for that. But before we wrap up, why don't you guys kind of tell us about the company DGC and what you guys are doing? I know, Chris, you talked about educating collectors in regards to it, but kind of walk us through. I think that the biggest challenge that most people or challenge that you guys probably ran into is how do you grade them right? And then, you know, 10.0s, you know, for different variables. And I think that you guys have done a great job of having certain, you know, certain grades and certain labels for different areas. So kind of walk us through that and how you guys came up with that and how it's going so far. And I'm a huge fan, obviously, because I have quite a few things graded, just FYI.
yeah.
Yeah. Start it off, Daniel.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the first walk was walking through the blazing fire that we knew we would be when we launched this. So, you know, we were fortunate that we could see what Comics and Crypto experienced when they put their first early iteration out of it, about like a grading system a few years back, which I don't know if you see that one, Dr. Fidgetal, but it was based upon the from pretty much one to the last mint, and it was then all done like on a percentage basis. So we looked at the feedback they got there. Cherry Charts, who was doing something similar. It wasn't necessarily officially a grading system, but it was a concept. So Chris and Denny had been sort of building something behind the scenes or working on something about like a grading methodology and just sort of adapting it and seeing what it could be. And then I was doing the same thing, and so was Scotchy. So we all got brave enough to sort of just let loose, say, look, I've been thinking about doing this. And then coincidentally, we all been doing it. And then we just brought it all together and come up with our ideas. And I think what was very important is that we wanted to have it where it could be for mass scale. So, you know, it's not going to be overly elitist where it's 10.0 and it's nothing. So we wanted to put a scaling in place where it could really reward a multitude of collections, but at the same time still have those isolated 10.0s, which you probably know is for each collector category, which is 6 of them, there's only one applicable 10.0 as a maximum in each of them. So it does still offer that sort of concept if someone's going for the highest grade too. But you know, I think when we launched this, we knew, not that we knew, but we were planning to have no submissions. Like we've got our own back book, which would grade literally from anything from a 0.5 to 10.0. So our plans were that we've got 7.5 years worth of stock. We could post 3 times a day as grades, and we could just wait until it takes off. And then literally day one, we got flooded. So it's been a lot of work, a lot of building whilst we've been dealing with submissions, which has been a challenge but been great. So
Yeah, just kind of pairing the, you know, your name, right? Fidgetal. You know, that's what I write about at Go Collect, and just that CGC didn't exist in 2000, right? I mean, they're relatively new at 25 years since they were started, and they came up with a concept that your book, based on its physical features, can be graded. And they went through the heat as well, right? Like you can't grade a book and then suddenly now there's an industry behind it. And it was to that same question, right? Well, how do you grade a digital asset? And This is what we talked about earlier, right? There were people that we knew were spending and investing dollars, significant dollars, to acquire very meaningful edition numbers, mint numbers. And you just kind of thought, there's something there. And then we would see people list something in the market and somebody would shout out, "Oh my God, I just got this. I found this at, for like $3." And then all of a sudden the owner's like, "What?" Um, and then it's relisted moments later for, 100x over the price, right? So that became that, as we said, this educational piece, because like we said, it's easy to pick like 1961 on Fantastic Four #1, and that should grade high. It's easy, it's marketable, it's significant. But what about, someone, we've got examples like Daniel said, like 11161, like the FFA was November 61. Those digits together might not mean anything to anyone else unless you did the homework to find out, well, what's the cover date on that book? Or August 1961, when Marvel, officially documented that that was their release date. Release date when the books are able to go to the comic book stores to sell. The cover date is sort of the hint that says this is when you're removing the book from shelves because you got to make room for issue 2, right? And so very meaningful numbers, but we have a system in place that allows for that allows for the specifics, month plus day plus year. There's year only. There's I know palindromes for Slider. We like to collect those. Some palindromes might be higher value than others. If you've got 5 ones, that's a binary set. If you've got 19391, like a 1939 reference on a Marvel Comics 1 palindrome. What if you have like the fun mint numbers, the 1 2 3 4 4 3 2 1? What if you have pairings and sets of similar books? What if you're a 1000 level collector, 1000, 2000, 3000? You can break these things down by scarcity. You can break them down by meaning. I know I love Daniel's. You've got the Evermind #1. You've got the 247, right?
Yeah.
Which is 247
Oh, I've got that on Sanity.
Sanity, right? So I mean, that's just, to me, such forward thinking, because the owners of the companies didn't even think about that. And they're like, "Oh my God," when we talk to them, it's like, huh? It's kind of like they
Well,
lose their
they're
what do we
thinking
say?
about it now because they just did their comic book release and the last mint is 247.
Right. Right, very
Oh,
scary.
nice.
And so that became a fun way that it's not just about grading one thing. It's about allowing collectors to showcase their collections, be able to represent them in a digital format, put them in a slab that if I just want to look at this, because for the same reason that I get my physical book slab and it's on my bookshelf, it's because it looks good. That's it. Now, there's some other utility. It protects the inner side of the book and whatnot. But I can't read it. I can't open it. If I crack the case is now valueless. What if we could recreate that somehow in a digital form and enhance the collecting industry and space? And that's really what you see here on these images. I challenge anyone to say, tell me this doesn't look better than it does just as the piece sitting in your phone in the Vivi's application, right? These look better. They're fun. And not saying this can happen or not, but if you have this and you decide to sell it, it's another means of helping you market the asset. There's descriptions on them from the slab. There's the grading card that gives you more detailed information. And you've got a team of really independent assessors that are doing a lot of homework when you get a submission to figure out how should this grade, what's the relevance behind this number, what did they see here that 99% of the rest of the market didn't see, why did they go after that, and how can we find some meaning? Your 1971 is a perfect example, right? And then but you don't also want to sort of disrespect someone that might have the 1923 or the 1951 when, or whatever it is, when the other parks opened. Walt's birthday, Mickey Mouse's first appearance in November 28. Like, so somebody that has a 1028 or an 1128 on Steamboat Willie, that's going to be significant. And so
Yeah.
a lot of people would just look at it and say, well, that's just an 1100 mint number. It means nothing. But when you break it down, yeah, you can actually pull a lot of significance out of putting digits together, which is, and I'll say this to anybody that's probably getting ready to FUD this, this exists elsewhere. This isn't just Vivi. People collect numerology on dollar bills, on stamps, on coins. This isn't new. It's numerical collecting. It's been around since the dawn of time, and this is just a new fun way to do it. So I throw all that stuff out because there's just a lot of ways that you can go after these things, right? So.
Yeah, and we knew that addressing the giant-sized elephant that was in the room when we launched it, we totally understood and respected it. Is that, you know, what appoints us or gives us the privilege or the advantage to be assigning a grade that is for something that could be quite subjective in the mint number. You know, I think we know from just even just looking at market trends, you know, a Star Wars 1977, irrespective if it's the character's FA or not, it's got a lot of power and goes for a lot of money. And even though we're not assigning monetary values to this, you know, we're not fools. If we're saying something's a 10.0, it's largely because it's recognized that it's got a strong value in a marketplace too. But you know, we've not done this lightly. You know, we've put a lot of our own due diligence and research in to equate where we think the grades make sense. We're always open for suggestions. You know, even though we try to be quite fixed and true to the way we've set up our methodology, you know, we're in an early phase. If we put something out, which we have before, we had ASM 252. Charlie Fisher's got the 252 mint, incredibly special. Well, initially we give that a 9.9. We reassessed off some feedback, listened to some big collectors out there, and we bumped that up to a 10.0. So, you know, it gives us that window where we you know, we're not you know, silly enough to say we're not going to listen or learn. But you know, I think ultimately someone had to. This is a product we feel is needed, or a service that's needed in our space. It will grow over time, and we've gone out there and done it first. You know, there'll be more, and we welcome that. You know, we will even help if it's good for the space.
Yeah.
And
It's a
I
good
think,
point, right? Because I mean, we wanted to be first because of the passion that we've had collecting editions and mint numbers and the number of people that we saw doing the same thing. And if we weren't first, there were going to be other entrants to the market that may not have represented the collecting community the same way. You see this all the time with corporations, right? They just want to jump in and make a few dollars and try and build some hype and all that kind of stuff. And we did this, right, altruistically, if that's the right word, because we're trying to get more passion in the space. We want people to enjoy this. If it means that 2, 3 more people decide that they're going to keep going and add more value to their collections and their assets because this is now fun. It goes right back. Daniel dropped a note about cherry charts. I mean, when they first started, they were kind of connected with comics and crypto. And they put 2 and 2 together. Comics and Crypto came out with their list that said, look, you just get a grade assigned based on your mint number from lowest to highest. And that's it. And then Cherry Charts created this little website where you could plug in your mint number, but you also had this little space to put 140 characters of a description of what that asset was. Because my 8390 Marvel Comics #1 was an 8,000 mint. It was not top 5%, so it didn't get the bonus MCP. But in my notes, right, August 39 is the reference that I have on that mint number. It means a hell of a lot to me. But I had so much fun doing that. And it's like, and it glamorized the asset a little bit. It looked great in Cherry Chart's blown up version of this grading, this case, really, right? And I thought, boy, that was pretty cool. And then to find out how many of those they actually produced, like it was 6 digits, I think, Daniel, if I'm not mistaken. Like there were a lot of them done, a lot of them. So
about 150,000 they had done.
150,000, right? So like, holy cow! So you knew now when there was heat on the mint grading scale, it's because there was passion, and obviously people are worried they don't want their bags to get dismantled and all that kind of stuff, right? But you combine that with the fun of slabbing your collectible, it was just You know, a lot of people had a lot of fun like I did. I still have most of those saved, right? I just downloaded the PDFs, right? I can't really do much with them now, and their cherry charge isn't around. But that was sort of like step one, right? Going back to the old Apollo rockets, and you know, now you got Elon talking about Mars again, right? Everything just keeps progressing.
Yeah. Oh, and on that front, there was two other elements to DGC that we knew we were going to be bringing out. We just were waiting for not necessarily the right time, but we just wanted to put a bit more development into it. So we now launched our clear label. So that's for individuals that don't necessarily want to have a grade assigned to a piece. So we've not had mass feedback on this, but naturally, you know, someone might submit something for grading, it's completely their baby, and even though it's a very nice mint, it might not get the higher scale. In their eyes, it's a 10.0. So what the clear label does, I don't know if you could see, I don't know if you've seen it, Dr. Fidgel. I put it out on our, we did a post on it earlier on our DGC page.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. This gives a bit of a shove it. So in essence, if someone owns a piece, they've got unbelievable passion for it, but they don't really want it necessarily be graded. Well, this is what the clear label's for, and what this will then do is do the same showcasing where we can slab it, whether it's a comic or a collectible, but then the kicker being it can have a deeper story. So we did one as an example. It's Marvel Comics 1. I own the 2021 mint, which is the year it first came out in digital format. You know, as a grade, it gets a 9.9, still incredibly high. Love that. But for me as a collector, that's sort of the jewel in my crown. So I've done it as a white label, and then someone like Chris can step in and work with me as a client or a collector, to build an editorial. So it actually, it really with the example we put out is much smaller, but in theory, you know, it can go into as much detail as someone wants, talks about why it's passionate to them, the history behind it. And then they also get all the visuals and everything else we've been creating anyway.
Yeah.
So we think that, again, it's early days, but this is going to have good value in our sort of space. And then the one other area which we've been working on, and I would say we're probably not too far from launching that, has been how to grade collections. So whether people own pairings, you know, they own a series, or they own just a very, very wide collection. Like, for example, I've got 666, and I've got God knows how many pieces there now. I can grade them, or we'll be able to soon grade them as a complete collection. And what we've got planned on that front is I would say quite mind-blowing.
Excellent. Shout out to Clever Jerk with the 1, 2, 3s and all of those, and Rolly and all of the mint hunters, because that's such a huge piece for all of us, and hopefully we can get them on the show as well to kind of walk through some of their collections and what they like. And you know, as I stated before, you know, I'm a huge fan of what you guys are doing. I've had quite a few of mine actually slabbed from you guys, and then I've also added things to my collection based on the information that I got from them. You know, so you know, I went out and got the last mint of the features logo because I wanted that 10.0, right? So
Yeah.
you know, I think that what you guys are doing is so awesome, and I can't wait to see like being able to put all of your collection together and seeing it in that clear label. I think is going to be huge. So with
Very similar to the
so
physical space, right? Just to throw that out there, it's not, because you'll get feedback. It's not for everybody. Not everybody grades their physical books. It's a small percentage of the total space, but that's where things like these clear labels. I just grabbed one of these, right? So you know, there's certain books that I might not send this into CGC to get graded, but I don't want the book to be damaged or degraded. So I have a hardcover plastic label to put this in to protect the asset. And again, it looks a little shinier and a little nicer because I can have it out on the bookshelf and not worry about it getting damaged or my kids ripping it or spilling a beverage on it, right? And there's other things where they're just, you know, the old fashioned, you know, you got the plastic board in the back and you've got your, because it just, I like the way it shines and stuff. That's the whole point of this. You're giving something for everybody. And to your point, if it enhances your space a little bit and it makes you think a little bit differently about how would I go and grab an asset and which asset would I want to get because of this, well, that's how it should all work. It's fun. and there's tremendous value in that. So as a guy that's collected comics for a few years now, right? I always say I took a 20-year hiatus, and then Vivi brought me back, and now my digital collection is vastly superior to my physical one, right? But that's just part of the game, and it's all fun. It's all fun. So.
Okay, so before we wrap up, I have one actual question from Ace McGinn that I'm going to give to both of you gentlemen. And his question is what comic do you think is not valued right now that could be valuable in the future on VV?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, actually, one that's already on the app.
Yeah, and then which one would you like to see on the app? Chris, I know yours because you mentioned it earlier.
Any Daredevil comic that you want to put on there, I'm good with. Yeah, I think for me, it's going to be Cap 1. I just think that's such a significant book for Marvel. And I undervalued. I could say almost all of them right now. I I still personally, I mean, I have a lot of secret rares and I love them for the collection and the scarcity, but the commons are the OG covers. And so I love finding mint matches on those because I'm the historian, right? I like to connect those two things. So in that respect, I think Fantastic Four #1, Amazing Spider-Man #1, and Marvel Comics #1 are given not the credit they're due because of the edition size. I think that's,
Gotcha.
I think there's a, I've thought this a long time, but I think there's a misnomer between scarcity and popularity. And I just don't think enough people understand that you can own a piece of those incredibly big grails. And I think once that factors out, the number 60,000 won't matter. And Vivi has, they've talked about this in the past, right? There's a plan at some point um, to potentially allow holders to burn their assets to acquire something unique or special from that. And so you'll see the reduction in the size count happen as well, like we see with burns today. But so yeah, those would be my big ones. And I mean, there's so many AF-15, good grief, the entire Galactus run on Fantastic Four, 48 to 50. I think that's an enormous set that's big in the real world. And then, yeah, anything. I mean, geez, Disney, F.A. Donald Ducks and Mickey Mouse. Where do you go? There's so many.
I think the
Yeah.
ones to come. Star Wars 42, which I want to say is the first appearance of Boba Fett in comic.
Yeah.
That one. Surely that will be at some
Yeah.
point. That's an absolute banger.
Mhm.
The Wolverine 1982, so his first official solo run. I want to say there was 4 issues of that one, and then there's the Wolverine cover. I think it's 241 where he's on the cross. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a very iconic cover, and I love the thing that I found that I'm really drawn to is that those late 80s, early 90s comic covers. Like they're the most nostalgic. Like your X-Force 1, X-Men 252. There's so many out there on the app.
Yeah.
But yeah, going to Chris's point, I think value-wise, I appreciate none of this is obviously not financial advice, as they say, but if and it's been said, but let's wait and see. They do burn some of the older editions, and you can burn to upgrade or whatnot, and there's some of these grails become more scarce. Yeah, your Fantastic Four 1.
Yeah.
I think I picked up a Fantastic Four 1 common for like $5 the other day, under floor. Sorry, under what it was actually in the marketplace.
Under retail, right?
Yeah, so I think Marvel Comics 1, I think there's a lot out there.
That Wolverine 87, before I forget my thought, because you mentioned it, Daniel, like when Deadpool Wolverine came out, and remember Deadpool's going through time looking for the right Wolverine, and he came across him on the cross, and then there was the comic size accurate, and they pulled Wolverines from different comics. And
yeah.
so imagine you're pairing, that could be a collection, right? As seen in Deadpool 3. Like there's so many ways you can go with this, right? But yeah, that was a great one, the cross.
Yeah. And that Wolverine 1 run from 1982 is actually out in digital format somewhere. I know we don't really. I'm not endorsing them at all. I think they've got a long way to come. But let's just say there's a company out there called Neon Ichiban. They're not NFTs. That's the only thing, and their fees are horrendous. But they have got some digital comics out there as well.
Yeah. And then one other thing to put on that, like think of something like Planet Death. So Planet Death Zero, which we have on Vivi, has 2,500 editions. That's it. There'll never be more than that, right? That's the scarcity count. They sold 1 million copies in print. In 2025, a comic book sold 1 million copies because of who the writers are, the pending movie release connected with it. The story is great. The artwork is great. It checks all the boxes. And there's 1 million in physical and only 2,500 available in digital asset form. So big number, but scarce digitally. So again, right, I look at things like that saying, well, you got 1 million buyers that went nuts trying to get access to that book and own one of the first printed copies. Why wouldn't you want to pair that? Right. So
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's a
Speaking of
brand new
that,
book.
hey,
That's a
Chris, stop
brand
talking
new
about that. I need to grab one.
Yeah, brand new book. So I get caught up because I like the Silver Age stuff, right? And then rolling into the 80s. But I look at things like that and I just like, well, there's your popularity versus history, and then scarcity's brought in. And those are fun ways to think about what happened in the real world and physical space that hasn't quite caught on yet digitally. Right. So
Yeah.
timing.
I
I just
don't-
look at it all as timing. How long am I prepared to wait?
Yeah, and one that I've got quite a few copies of is that Modville. I'm looking forward to because that's I'm a big Ridley Scott fan. He's obviously involved in that project. Then you've got the connection with Johnny Depp on that one, haven't you?
Yeah.
So, I love the cover art on that. That could be something.
Yeah. We had this chat too, right? The Wolverine, is it Wolverine? I can't remember that. It's if you search for it in Vivi, this search box actually works. I've tried it, but Wolverine by Chris Claremont or Chris
Oh,
Claremont
yeah, I know the one.
Wolverine. So they created like only 500 of these in physical format, and there's not many that exist in the real world. And he did this special book, special cover art. Physical collectors got actual props and things that came with it when they bought it, and Vivi ran it through Vivi Green, so there's only 1,000 copies of it in existence in digital format. So again, very, very scarce physically, extremely scarce digitally, but I can read it all the time. It doesn't degrade. Right? So
No.
some advantages.
Fair enough. Fair.
Right?
And Slider says cul-de-sac is another good one. So
Yeah, great artwork on that too.
Yeah. And what about yourself, Dr. Fidget? Have you got one that you've been waiting for, or you think?
So no, because you know me, unlike you guys, I am more of a collectible fan. I'm getting into the comic side, right? So I
Yeah.
would say for me, if I were to talk through what would be my most underrated, you know where I'm going. I'm going Iron Man animated. I think that is hugely undervalued.
Yeah.
It's such a great one.
Yeah.
So for me, I would say that.
Yeah.
But
I love that.
with that being said, I kind of want to close out with some closing thoughts from you guys, and what are your last thoughts that you want to share before we jump off? And I'm excited for the next time that we all get together for another conversation.
Yeah.
I think for me it's just enjoy it. I think doesn't seem like there's much FUD in our space. Definitely isn't as much as there was before. I think a lot of people that maybe have FUDded have completely gone now. But I think that's the main thing with it, is just enjoy the collecting. There can be some frustrations with maybe some time delays and whatnot, but I think if you can just accept that it's going to take time, it's a growing space, I think it's much more enjoyable for that. And then just again on the DGC front, just again, thanks to anyone that's sort of been an early supporter. We've got some big things coming that we've been designing with Gold Club and things like that. So again, just appreciate everyone's support on that front as well.
Yeah. First off, thanks to everybody for watching, participating, supporting DGC. It's been great. For those of you that read my blogs on Go Collect, I appreciate it. It's hard to get readers these days in a world of YouTube and short form everything. But yeah, that's appreciated. And thanks for having us on the show. It's been really fun. And yeah, I mean, just enjoy the space, enjoy the building. You know, I always look at it as towers don't go up overnight. Some of them take years, and projects take years to complete. And it's not about the end result for me; it's the journey. I've met so many incredible people because of this space. I have so many new friends now. I have business partners. I'm being invited onto fantastic shows like this where we have incredibly fun and informative chats. This all came out of an app that didn't exist 5 years ago, right? And so
100%.
I look at where we're going to be in the next 5 years, the next 10 years from all this kind of stuff. And so, yeah, I always encourage everyone to enjoy the journey. You know, fudders are out there. I get it. It's part of the experience, but I'm always half full glass kind of guy. And
Mm.
at the end of the day, my only other advice would be read your comics. Like you have this wonderful gift to experience history in real time, and your books don't degrade because you can read them now in digital format and enjoy it. And if you don't like the book, you don't want it anymore, you can sell it and go grab another one. I think that's something that we don't do enough of, and I wish I had more time because I have thousands of books I know I have to read. I always say everything came out of the comics, right? Our favorite characters that we will go watch in the movie theaters, and everything that you see today, you know, if it's a Marvel something or a Star Wars, it probably came out of a comic book, or the concept did. And so, what a wonderful way to see the experience. And if anything, it supports the artists and the history that made this all happen, right? So that's a nice little way to blend this whole thing together. So.
Excellent,
100%.
excellent. And what I'm going to say is make sure that you guys drop by DGC website, click on and enter a submission if you like, because they do great work. But we are super excited to have you here on the live stream. We are looking forward to doing more live streams, having you guys tune in. Please drop in the comments different content that you would like for us to do as we continue to expand the page. But we really appreciate it. One thing that I will say is, as they always say, collect what you love. You know, your collection tells a story. And, you know, one of the things that you can do and go wrong with is, you know, sometimes we buy something for an investment and it doesn't turn out, or you end up taking a loss because you've invested in something that you don't believe in. You have to have conviction because, you know, you're going to have ups, you're going to have downs. But as Chris stated, you know, the benefit of this particular community is we've become a family. You know, 4 years ago, we would have never been on a stream for, you know, someone in the UK, Canada, in the US that has never met before, having great conversation and talking through our collections and what we love. So, you know, I will say, as in the title, collect and connect. And I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, gents. Nice.